Good morning, good afternoon, good day, whatever and wherever you are in the world. I always make a point of welcoming everyone because unfortunately there are places, as we all know, where are not necessarily welcome because sometimes of our gender, sometimes of our country of origin, or of our race. This is not a place like this. This is a place where all can sit at a table and be welcome. So, Caribou, welcome, benvenido, bienvenue, all are welcome here. So today, we are having another courageous conversation. 2.5 years ago, I joined the Girl Child Long Walk Project. And I have to tell you that I'm very excited about it because this is something that I wanted to see. I've had the pleasure and privilege of working with both Emily and Domnic, and this is about the making of the reading journey. So what is the reading journey for those of you who don't know? This is based on a book that was written, an ebook that was written by both Emily and Domnic. It's called The Girl Child and Her Long Walk to Freedom, Putting Faith to Work Through Love to Break Ancient Chains. I know, long titles, and we'll talk about it later. But this book just goes and talks about the roots of patriarchy. It takes us on a journey to sort of explore how patriarchy is all around us. It unpacks us. It also introduces us to amazing faith-inspired change agents. And since 2018, since it was launched, it has involved people from all around the world. And for many, it has been a transformative experience. So that's, in a few words, what the reading journey is all about. Now, I just want to sort of like talk about very quickly and say for 1 second in terms of marketing that please, if you're not part of our sort of like mailing list, if you're not on the hub, join us on our app because there will be an abbreviated reading journey starting in January. So please stay in touch. So that's one. As far as today is concerned, we are going to have a word from the authors, and then I'll briefly introduce them, even though I feel like I've already done that. And we'll have a conversation and a meaningful conversation about why it matters even more today than before. Thank you. Emily and Domnic. And we'll leave a few minutes for questions and possibly have like some group conversation. Emily and Dominic, back to you.
Okay. Well, the why behind everything we do is very sacred, often very confusing and mysterious, isn't it? So we are very humbled and honored to linger over the why behind this project. We each bring our own unique journey to whatever we do, and each of you brings your own why and your own journey into this circle, for which we are very grateful. So Marie Rose has started these courageous conversations with our incredible Girl Child Long Walk team. Thank you, Marie Rose, for always bringing your good energy, and welcome to all these meetings. So we like to begin our courageous conversations with our short animated video called Understanding Our History of Patriarchy. What's faith got to do with it? And we do this in a very prayerful way. We invite you now to open your hearts and to bring your own why and your own journey into our conversation. So as we watch this video together, it's only 4 minutes, I invite you into a posture of prayer. And to do that, I invite you to hold a girl child you know and love in your heart. Let her represent the girl child past, present, and future. Recall to your mind's eye her life force, her presumption of equality, and expectation that life would be kind and treat her fairly. Fill your heart up with love for her. Now hold in your mind's eye and your heart your own spiritual journey, including whatever religious formation you had as a child and beyond into adulthood. We've all been shaped by many influences, both good and bad. No judgment. Just hold your religious formation in your heart. Now take a moment to hold your own consciousness, that inborn soul knowing that emanates from deep inside of you. This is your direct experience with life that cannot be taught by an external authority. This is a very sacred interior sphere and requires freedom to grow and flourish into all we are meant to be as a human being. Just be still in this interior sphere for a moment and feel the breath of life that is quietly breathing life into your being, moment by moment. When you are still like this, do you feel an existential quest within you? Something that has always been there inside of you, nudging you to wonder about the meaning of life, gnawing beneath all of the religious and cultural formation, all the clutter and noise of life, to keep growing, to keep seeking, to keep finding your path in the larger mystery of life. I invite you now to carry this quest with you as we watch this video. Allow yourself to step in the shoes of our girl child and join her in asking, what's going on here?
Girl child, can you remember who you were before the world told you who you should be?
Deep down, I've always believed in myself and known I'm just as good as anyone else. But lately, I notice that the world treats me differently because I'm a girl. From sunrise to sunset, my sisters and I do chores at home, while my brothers get to do whatever they want. And I see my mother carry the full burden of tending to our family. In church, they don't like when I ask questions, so I've learned to sit quietly. In the street, I see girls who walk in fear, as mothers warn their daughters not to give men the wrong idea. Everywhere I look, the world tells me I'm inferior, but this does not feel true. What's going on here?
Girl child, you are right to question.
Who? Do I know you?
I am your mother's mother and her mother's mother. I am the mother of all.
Then you must know why the world treats us this way. Please tell me, how did this come to be?
Well, it is complicated, and there are many overlapping theories, but we do know that these traditions were man-made long, long ago. It was not always like this. In the beginning, men and women walked side by side together, valued equally as hunters and gatherers. Eventually, we began to settle down. And around this time, we elevated the idea of property and the need to own land and control a workforce. Men became protective of what was theirs, which led to fighting. Sexual violence against women became a weapon of war. Conquerors enslaved women as concubines. Men felt entitled to own and take on many wives, even in times of peace. As their wealth grew, so did the desire to give males an inheritance. Girls came to be seen as property, valued primarily for their sexual purity and ability to have children. They were exchanged between families for a price. Many girls were subjected to traditions aimed at preserving their purity and family honor. Many are still practiced today. It is this domination that gave birth to all forms of slavery and how women became the world's first slaves. It is how patriarchy and the ethic of male honor became the norm. Patriarchy was woven into our civilizations, our laws, economies, philosophies, sciences, and especially our religions. It is everywhere, and it is invisible. It's no accident that we replaced ancient images of God as both male and female with images of God as a man.
But haven't we made progress since those times?
In some ways, yes. But in many ways, we're still moving in the wrong direction.
But what can I do when patriarchy is everywhere? I can't turn my back on my family or on my faith.
There is a spiritual path to liberation in the Bible and other religious traditions, but we must be brave and question what isn't working. Women and men, girls and boys, even the earth itself are suffering under the domination of patriarchy. To heal our land, we must bravely untangle our traditions from this oldest oppression. What was made by our hand can also be unmade. We must keep walking the Exodus path from slavery to the freedom of the Promised Land. Imagine if we could re-know the beautiful world that was meant for all God's children.
A world where girls can grow up feeling safe and equally valued?
A world where both boys and girls grow up to be all they were meant to be. Girl child, your curiosity has set you on a path many others have walked before you. Because of their work, we know the way forward. But there's a lot more to do and more truth to discover. Are you ready to take this journey with me?
Every time that I watch this video, it's interesting because I never quite get tired of it. So at any rate, I would like to introduce our panelists, Emily Nielsen Jones and Reverend Domnic Misolo. And I want to introduce them as not just activists, but as faith-inspired change agents. And when I say, and I think about them in terms of faith-inspired, as in faith for humanity, faith in humanity, and in realizing that we do need to build a better world for not just our girls, but our boys and all of us. So without further ado, I will start with a question. Emily and Domnic, please tell us about the why. So why did you start? I mean, we all know that putting a book together and something like that, I mean, everything, it just takes it's tremendous work and energy to give birth to something like this. So why did you do it? Why did you write it? What brought you together? I mean, I must say one of the things is that Emily lives in the Boston area, I mean, Domnic lives in Kenya. I mean, come on, happen.
Well, why don't I start ladies first? And just say that I love the birthing imagery because the writing of this did feel like a birthing process. And thankfully, there are many midwives that are on this call. Thank you, Girl Child Long Walk team. And also Domnic as co-pilot. Now we've grown, you know, we're not a baby, we're like a toddler or maybe a preschooler. But I thought, why don't I start by describing our top line shared why for launching this project and how Domnic and I met. And then I thought both of us could share our own particular why behind this project and just in general our work. Sound good? So I met Domnic soon after my husband and I started the Imago Dei Fund in 2009. And I have to admit, I was in something of an existential crisis. I had gone through a pretty steep learning curve, just engaging around the world, first learning about human trafficking. And it wasn't long before I connected the dots and saw that it wasn't an accident that over 80% of the world's enslaved peoples are women and girls. Everywhere I went, women and NGO leaders were saying, in sort of an eerie refrain, the needle had been moving forward for women and girls here in Cambodia, in Turkey, for their equality, human rights, and democracy in general. But in the last few years, the needle has been moving backwards. And that, something about that, the needle moving backwards. I grew up in the 70s where it felt like the needle was moving forwards. I was in a very girl-centered environment. But anyway, just engaging globally and hearing a lot of the same kind of beliefs, like the man is the head of the household, just in all the humanitarian problems with that and consequences. And just hearing everywhere that it was religious voices that were calling for a return to these norms of male supremacy and presumption of control. So that just kind of kicked my butt into gear. And then on top of it, learning about how just eerily normalized violence against girls and women is, and it's just swept under the carpet as this is just the way things are. And sadly to say that religion is often the sanction behind this. My daughter was about 10 at the time, and this mother bear came crawling out of her cave, asking, how could this be that in the 21st century, the bar is still so low for women and girls, basic dignity and human rights? But to hear that the needle is going backwards, that's what really kicked my butt into gear. And so anyway, I found myself at a conference convened by Christians for Biblical Equality, and that's where I met Domnic. And Domnic was leading a workshop, and I was sitting outside in the hallway, and it was on the topic of female genital cutting. And he was just so passionate to just inform people of what this was, and also to explain how the church's theology, patriarchy, was mixing in with these harmful traditional practices. And I was very disturbed, but I just loved his sort of holy irreverence. And he was just kind of raising these yellow and red flags saying, we need to do better. We need to be careful about our theology. And he also just had this beautiful smile on his face. So that's how I met Domnic. And one thing led to another. And I just, you know, it's a ancient story, how it came to be that the male gender came to see itself as in control and possessing all the power to control and dominate females. This goes back centuries. It's a very, very ancient story. So I started just digging, learning more, reading lots of books, and wanted to do something to just kind of bring this understanding out into the world. But I wanted to hand the baton off to Domnic. So basically our shared why is just the needle going backwards around the world for women and girls' basic equality, and just not being okay that it's religious voices that are sanctioning this. So Domnic, can I hand the baton off to you? And maybe can you share your why, your what's going on here, curiosity that led you on this journey?
Thank you so much, Emily. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning to everyone. I'm so happy to join you guys and to tell my why. Because ideas have consequences. And I remember how I witnessed the abuse against my mother by my father, just because of the supremacy of my father, and also supremacy of men in my community, in my church, and also in our family, made a reflection in me that actually ideas have consequences. So I remember so well growing up as a young boy. By then, actually, we were still young, and we were growing up. My mom was second wife, and I could see my father and my mother fighting. I was the second born in a family of 12. So I was wondering why my father was actually wielding much power over my mother. And I was still young. I could not figure out, because I could see them, both of them were adults. My father was grown up, my mom was grown up. And my father was having a lot of power, because I could see ordering her to lie down in front of us as children, and killing her, and beating her with a stick. Sometimes she could run away. And these things, I never liked them, because I could not tell why. So I also going to the church, I could witness the supremacy of men again against women, because most of the church leaders, both ordained and lay, were actually men. And one day also I went to the chief's baraza, still as a child, together with my mother, because normally in the rural village, it is the basic administrative unit that if maybe the government want to relay information to the community, people gather at the chief's camp or assistant chief camp, or possibly at the village elder. By then we are at the chief's camp. So coming in as a boy, being a boy, I was actually offered a chair that was available. And my mother and other women actually were spreading their clothes to sit on the ground. I was given a chair basically because I was a boy, I was a man, I was a male person. So that's again, I figured out, looking at my family, my father fighting my mother and beating her, going to church, seeing all men ordering church services and actually preaching and doing everything in leadership. And again, coming to the community leadership, seeing the chiefs, men, and also women actually were subjects sitting down, things like that. And also being me as a child, my mom is an adult and I'm being offered a chair to sit as a child. Those were my why, because the supremacy, the dominance of men were actually everywhere. I could see them in a family, in church, and in the community. And that's why I asked myself this great question: what is going on here? Because I could not tell. And I thought this is God's ordained for man to be superior. So that went like that. Then later in my seminary, when actually I've gone for a theological seminary, doing my education, biblical education, I came across academic journal that was talking about the role of faith, actually the role of faith in challenging gender-based violence, and actually talking about biblical equality, how to interpret the Bible. And this academic journal challenged my worldview. I was in that classroom, and I think God brought back my childhood memory, the things I've been seeing, a lot of things, seeing my mom suffering, because we were 12. My mom was second wife, and we were 12. And we could not even afford the decency in dressing, better health care, even basic food we lacked, because we are so many, we are too much for that woman. So coming back, many things reflected poverty, violence, and I said that one of the main things that actually influence our society is Christianity, is the faith that we profess. So I saw that actually many times when people believe that God that we worship is male, of which many times we project God as male, it goes to the DNA to define that male, actually men are actually are resemblance of God, while actually women does not reflect the image of God, which is a misinterpretation. So this thing, when I actually in seminary, everything changed. And that's how I asked the reason that actually I can be involved to actually talk about my whys and why we can enter through faith perspective to challenge gender stereotypes, challenge attitudes, actually to bring about equality for men and women. It was a great discovery that actually God is using in our current situation to teach men and also to empower men to end gender-based violence. It is a discovery that actually we are now using to engage both boys and girls in schools and in churches on reproductive health in order to reduce teenage pregnancy. It is the same discovery of why that actually we are engaged in inviting faith leaders across East Africa through our Pan-African Faith Leaders Conferences, that we may have dialogue about the Bible and gender, about theology, how our theology sometimes is wrong to portray an unequal world, an injustice world, that actually our faith proclaim men as superior to women. So these are what we have been doing by the grace of God. And I thank God meeting Emily for us from different spiritual persuasions and forging way forward to actually co-author this book that is reflecting faith, the role of faith in actually challenging patriarchy and gender stereotypes. So this is my humble beginning, and I see God is actually using this discovery to change a lot of things, not only in Kenya, but we have been working also in Uganda, also in Tanzania, also actually working in Rwanda to bring faith leaders together, to rethink about our theology, to make conversation and a dialogue on how faith can be involved to end gender-based violence by actually recognizing that the same faith community has been projecting patriarchy that actually has burdened and oppressed women for many years. Thank you.
Thank you, Domnic. So as you're hearing, our why is probably going to take up the whole conversation, the hour that we have. But I just really appreciate Domnic's why and just the way he's using his Anglican platform as a minister, as a priest, to help people kind of say what's going on here. Is there not a deeper liberating path within Christianity? So I just relate with that, and I'm so grateful for it. I'll just add a few other layers to my why. So Domnic and we grew up in very similar traditions in many ways, that believe that the Bible is the authority for everything. But I grew up in Boston, was raised in upstate New York. And so I, just grew up every bend of my journey. There were gender norms that I was kind of pushing back against. And overall, the needle was moving forward everywhere I was. But I did, as I described, it really hit this existential angst where I could see that the needle, all these beliefs that I was raised again with in the church, only in the church, that had been maybe seemed sort of mild, in many other places were very severe. And I would hear things like, well, here in Cambodia, the man is the head of the house. So if he doesn't like the food that you make or something you say, he can beat you. So I was really connecting, as Domnic was saying, ideas have consequences. And I always knew that in my inner knowing. So that's what I want to bring up now, that my journey, really since my early 30s, so that's been like 20 years, has been to reclaim my own inner knowing, my own consciousness that is deeper than all of the beliefs, and not to be questioned certitudes that I was raised with. But I was never really encouraged to say what's going on here, or to just ask myself, how do I know what I know about life? So my journey has been really this inner journey, and we weave this into the reading journey, just inviting everyone to just dig a little deeper and say, what is the essence of faith? How is it liberating? And what is the difference between all the certitudes that we are raised with? Whatever church, whatever religious tradition you're in, you're handed answers on a silver platter. Is that really faith, or is there something deeper than that? So that's been my quest, to just say, what is faith and how is it liberating? And we all come from different starting points, and the whole aim of the project is to just say, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here, as Marie Rose said, and we invite you to really tap into your inner knowing and to just dig a little deeper and say, what is faith and how is it liberating? So thank you very much. And I'll also add in a thread of being a mother, that is a big part of my why. I stand in solidarity with mothers around the world who are not okay with watching these things happen to their daughters, but sometimes the social norms and the religious norms are just too heavy. So a mentor of mine once said, a voice without 1,000 echoes dies. So I'm echoing 1,000 voices, thousands of voices of women, past, present, and future, that are not okay with their girls being treated this way. So we need to do better as a human family, and that's what this reading journey is all about. Back to you, Marie Rose.
Thank you, Domnic and Emily. I want to take a minute to appreciate, because I think one of the most dangerous threats to social change and to a more just world is the normalization of injustice. Normalization to the extent where, in so many ways, as we are raised to think that so many different things, whether it's sexism or racism or patriarchy, are normal. It is the way things are done. And it is part of our traditions. It is part of our faith traditions, that we are conditioned not to question them, especially if we benefit from them. And I want to take a moment to appreciate Domnic, because I was born and raised in Haiti, a very much male-dominated country, where I got in trouble because from the time I could talk, I would question. But Domnic is a man. And this is a system that in so many ways he could ignore because it benefited him and it put him in power. He questioned it. I want to appreciate that. I also want to appreciate Emily because, you know, she didn't have to do, and she doesn't have to do what she does. She could just close her eyes, ignore everything, stay in, enjoy a privilege, right? So both these people somehow had a calling to do something that required a lot of energy, passion, and commitment, and take stands. And hopefully, you know, it's not hopefully, we can learn from them and the world can learn from them. So it goes beyond the reading journey. Back to the reading journey at this stage and to the subject, at the topic at hand. As you know, I mean, it's so funny because I have two activists, you know, that have a lot to say and have known each other and work on this for, you know, very passionate about gender equality. And then, you know, you add me to the mix. Anyway, so this is taking quite a bit of time as far as some of the questions. But I want to know about the title. What is the story behind the title? I also want to know about the arc of the reading journey. And, you know, because I just want to make sure that we capture so much of the substance of why it makes a difference, why people that have been involved have been saying, this has changed the way I view the world. This has, you know, sort of like pushed me into questioning. This has pushed me into activism. Okay, so I just want you to tell us and to tell everybody who's going to be watching this video, who isn't watching here, why it matters, why you did it, and all it helps, okay, and where hopefully it will take us.
Okay, and then you had said, explain the title of the ebook.
Yes.
So, but I could start by explaining the title and Domnic the subtitle. As you heard, it's long. So you might recognize that part of the title is borrowed from Nelson Mandela's struggle against apartheid and really all systems which elevate one group as master over another. So the long walk to freedom is a symbol of our shared quest as a human family. All too often, gender is just seen as like, oh, that gender issue, like if you're raised in the church in a conservative denomination, oh, the gender issue. But no, we're all humans. So what we're doing is saying we want females to be included in the long walk to freedom. So the word her in front of long walk to freedom it shouldn't be daring, but it's an assertion that the long walk to freedom belongs to all of us. But at every bend of the long walk to freedom, all these movements of liberation, the female half of the human family again and again has been sent to the back of the bus. So we are centering the journey around the girl child, first of all, because she's more cute than we women, and because feminism has been stigmatized, but mostly because she shows us how we're all born into the world with the same presumption of equality. If you have a daughter or know a girl, you know that she didn't come into the world with any of these notions that she should be a second-class citizen, she should be silent in church or anywhere else, she should be submissive. No, exactly the opposite. Men made up all the religious and cultural rules that have shamed, blamed, and stigmatized females as bringing evil into the world. And we just want to say, you know, if we're really teaching the Exodus path, the long walk to freedom, we have to dig back a little deeper. So we all know that there's a deeper reckoning going on in our world today around racism, around slavery, around colonization, and all that is great. But we just want to say, raise a yellow flag and a red flag and say, don't forget about gender. Don't forget about the oldest oppression, the oldest slavery that lives within all other slaveries. We can't move forward on any other level around race, around economics, if we don't remember and do a deeper reckoning with the gender norms that long, long ago made the girl child and women slaves in their own family. So that's a little bit about the title and the subtitle. Domnic, maybe you could say a little bit about the subtitle, Putting Faith to Work Through Love to Break Ancient Chains, from a verse in Galatians.
Thank you, Emily. I'm happy because through this Girl Child Long Walk to Freedom, actually God is using this discovery to change many lives and also to bring the perspective that many people never thought before. I want to start by saying, before saying that directly, I start to I don't know if you can see this, say that to have wings is to have faith is to have wings. I've been doing a lot of training, especially our approach, both with faith leaders, with the male leaders, and also with the youths in schools. We do a lot of training and we use the Bible as actually a resource through which actually we do empowerment. Number one, we bring the issue of interpretation, of which actually many times the Bible has been used to silence women for many times because it has been misinterpreted to justify some biblical text, actually to put women down, that actually this is what the Bible says, but that's not what the Bible says. So many times, especially dealing with faith leaders who has theology, we have lots of discussion, dialogue, and talking about theology of gender, and why we think that when we use the Bible and also we use faith leaders with their pulpits, with their influence, we are going to actually have a breakthrough on issues of sexual and gender-based violence. Because majority of people, when we do actually our pre-conference survey or pre-training survey, the most circles of influence that influence people mostly is actually their religious convictions. And therefore, when you put people together from different persuasion, maybe they are not Christian, but they are meant for community, you find that they believe, even those who are not going to church, that God actually put man to be powerful than women. So even though they don't go to church, but they believe very strongly that what they possess, the patriarchy, the power they have comes from God. So I believe that it is same faith, same religion that actually will untangle, which actually will release, will dismantle patriarchy and release women and men from patriarchy. Because it is through this faith that actually is going to give us hope through the truth that we are proclaiming based on the Bible that we use, that when we interpret the Bible correctly in the context that actually we are doing it, God is going to release us and going to teach us new things. So I want to say that in Galatians, what matters above all is putting faith to work through love. When we as Christian leaders, especially faith leaders that are God has given the mandate to be shepherds, to work with people, to tell people, to pastor people, tell people truth about God. When we don't act in love and we don't act on justice, actually we are not acting in love, and therefore whatever we are teaching the community is like a poison. It's like something that is not going to challenge the retrogressive cultures. It's not going to bring restoration. It's not going to bring reconciliation. It's not going to bring peace to those who are suffering. Because when I use the Bible, which is the word of God, it's a sacred text, and put one gender down, especially in a family setup, that you use the Bible to say that I'm the head of the family because the Bible says so. God has ordained me to be the head of the family. And here I'm coming from a patriarchal background, a patriarchal culture that actually dominates over women. It was very easy for my father to beat my mom because the value that she's seeing in my mom was less than the value he can see in a father, in a man. When I went to Chiefs Barasa and they see the value in me as a man and the value in my mother, my mother could sit down because our value is not the same. As a man, I have a value according to their interpretation than my mother, than a female. So I believe that when we don't act in love, because the love of God tells about our equal work, our equal dignity, and our equal sharing in the society, in the family that God has given us together. And therefore, if we don't act on love, we don't teach the truth that God actually created both men and women in his or her image, then actually we miss the mark, and we're teaching societies to preach about patriarchy, to tell people about patriarchy, men dominance, which actually is not love. And therefore, friends, I believe that from Galatians, the interpretation that we are getting, that we must act as faith leaders, as faith communities, we must act in love for us to transform our societies, for us to bring change, to the girl child, and also for men too, because patriarchy is dominating both men and women, because men are actually acting with the power which they don't have. They're acting in power to harm their fellow human beings, which actually cannot give their contribution to the community. Their potential are not tapped because they are being seen as people who are not valuable, people who are not equal to them. So I want to say finally that, friends, what matters above all else is putting faith to work through love. We must put love first, and faith is going to work through us and transform our society. Thank you.
That's beautiful, Domnic. Thank you. And I love hearing all your kids in the background. Okay, so to answer Marie Rose's, the next part of your question about like the general arc of the reading journey. And let me just first say reading journey, we're using that term because we do see it as a journey, and we are seeking to create a brave and safe space to invite anyone, but mostly people of faith on a journey to walk back in time and better understand the deep roots of patriarchy, which live in many of our cultural traditions and our religious traditions. So the whole aim is to see it as a journey. Wherever you are on this journey, you don't have to have all the right answers. We invite you on a journey, and we invite you to be curious. That's one of our chief values. So the general arc of the book follows and remembers the Exodus path. So the Exodus path is sort of a spiritual symbol that we see in the Bible, and it's basically the same thing as the long walk to freedom that Nelson Mandela described. And the whole idea is that we're all on a journey as a human family to liberate ourselves from all forms of slavery and oppression. And as you know, religious people of faith, just like taking the time to notice that our religious traditions have been not always walking the Exodus path, as much as we want to sugarcoat and see ourselves as the chosen people, those who are leading the world toward justice. If we actually take the time to pause and look, our own traditions that we call home have been on the side of slavery and oppression. So we're inviting seekers basically of all faiths, but because we're from the Christian tradition, probably the center of the bullseye is people who are in the Christian tradition. But again, we're all seekers. So we have many on this journey. And so we have a nice graphic on the website you can look at if you want to see where, like a map of where the journey is going. But basically part 1, called Herd Ground Zero, it just gives a lay of the land, like sort of looking at the mountain we're seeking to move, the mountain of, we're using the word gendercide, just this normalized oppression of girls and women that harms the soul and the body. And then we walk to part 2, and part 2 is Her Egypt, where we seek to understand and lament the oldest slavery that existed, that has been encoded in all of our religious traditions, in civilization itself, so ancient that people don't even name it. So we want to go back. We think we have to remember and lament that along with race-based forms of slavery, gender oppression lives within all of our traditions and civilization in general. So then we walk, that's a dark chapter of lament. Then we walk together to part 3, called Her Exodus, and we invite the reader to follow Lady Liberty and Lady Wisdom to cultivate a more natural spirituality that lives within creation itself and within our religious traditions, but we need to seek and dig to find her. This is the sacred feminine that our religious traditions have basically banished and have done great harm to all of us. And if we truly want to liberate ourselves from patriarchy, we need to bring back the sacred feminine and recover our more natural interdependence and freedom, and shed all the dominator systems of the past. And lastly, in part 4, we glimpse together the promised land, Eden. And I'll give you a quick look. It's not a future state that we will wait for, but rather it's a very present reality that we co-create together. So that's basically the arc of the journey. Domnic, do you want to say a little something about the faith-inspired change agents that appear throughout the journey, of which you are one of them?
Thank you so much, Emily. I want to say that myself as a faith leader, as a faith-inspired change agent, first and foremost, I'm a product of grace, because I considered myself as an unlikely feminist, but when God actually called me to do this, it was so heavy in my heart because I could see the tears of my mother when actually I was in that class. So thinking of how my mom could be crying and weeping in the hands of my father. So growing up, actually, this thing keep on reflecting on me, and I say that I'm a product of this because I was brought up in patriarchy, but God is now calling me to challenge patriarchy, especially from a faith perspective. I believe in faith, in challenging patriarchy, because actually it is the religious traditions that actually formed and reinforced patriarchy. And therefore, when we invest actually in empowering faith leaders, faith communities, we are moving in the right direction actually to dismantle violence against women and girls and sexual and gender-based violence, because it is there that actually it was formed. Because the basic idea and assumption is that God is male. So many times people think that the power that men yield, the power of patriarchy, is actually the power of God, which is actually a big lie. It's a lie from the hell. So I want to appreciate the faith-inspired change agents within the reading journey. Throughout the reading journey, you are going to encounter many faith-inspired change agents. I want to seek your attention to Consola Wilbert from Tanzania, who actually is the founder and executive director for New Hope for Girls. She's doing amazing work. I've visited her, I've seen her, joined her work. She's doing amazing work with faith communities, with faith leaders. So like Consola, and also we have Annette Kibira from Uganda. She's also the founder and director of Rahab organization. Also, we have Cynthia Beauty from the United States, the founder and executive director of Upenda, and many other faith-inspired change agents. I believe many times I was being interviewed by the World Council of Churches and also by the Anglican Communion. They were asking me why I believe that faith stand a better chance to dismantle patriarchy. It's because I believe faith-inspired change agent actually is doing amazing work because they are appealing to people's hearts and also people's faith, and people can change from within. So when we change people from a faith perspective, actually they are changed from within, from the DNA, and they believe what actually they profess and they do. I appreciate the work that our faith-inspired change agents are doing. I believe through these courageous conversations and also through this reading journey, if we invest in more faith-inspired change agents, actually we are going to have the greater hope of actually bringing gender justice and also challenging patriarchy and bringing peace for both men and women, because they go back to their grassroots and also go back to the DNA of patriarchy, and they have the potential to destroy it and bring peace. So thank you so much, Emily, for and our team for investing in this in faith-inspired individuals, because I believe they are doing a great work. There are so many in the reading journey, but I've just mentioned those three so that you can see that investing in faith-inspired change agent actually can bring more value for women and girls, and also for men and boys, because we are going to all together come together to challenge patriarchy and bring peace and reconciliation. Thank you.
Thank you. And most, if I could just add, most of the faith-inspired change agents that appear throughout the reading journey are also survivors of gender-based violence in many ways. Domnic, you yourself are a survivor of gender-based violence. So they bring just their story of surviving patriarchal norms, but then the brave faith of being able to question it and try to do something about it. And this is the light along the journey. There's a lot of hardship and sadness, but there's a lot of light to make it worth doing the journey. Thank you.
Domnic and Emily, it has been not just a courageous conversation, but a courageous journey that still continues. And now that we've talked about specifically the reading journey, what I would like to do is to invite people again to join our abbreviated reading journey in January. We will have some sessions that will be co-facilitated at times between, with Emily and Domnic. And please, if you haven't sort of like read part of the reading journey, or you haven't joined the hub, think about it. This is a very special space where faith-inspired change agents and members of communities from all over the world come together and discuss these issues that are basically essential if we want to change the world and address patriarchy. Thank you so much. We are now at 3:58. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking about like my time zone or whatever time it is, where basically we have a few minutes left. Just a couple of minutes. We do need to wrap up. I do want to give a chance to anyone who has a burning question, whether or not you want to put it on the chat or you want to sort of like ask Emily and Domnic, as we have the two of them here. Is there any question that one of you would like to pose?
I would love to ask a question.
Please do.
It's been on my heart really heavy as the news unfolds from Iran. And how do we take this knowing and everything you've articulated today, and how do we help the women in that country right now? I feel really helpless. I would love any insight you have into that.
Thank you. I know there's so many places in the world that are extra heavy in our hearts around just gender norms. And so, you know, I don't know if I have any answer, other than supporting the faith-inspired change agents who are there. So that, I guess that's my, just in general, as we've been digging, and this idea of on shared sisterhood, they had this mantra, dig and bridge, so that when you're in global conversations like we try to convene in this project, if you're digging together to say, what are the roots? So how did the world get so inhumane across the gender line? The first line of difference that you come into the world, how did we get so inhumane and subjugating? So the digging and then the bridging, you start to see that it looks unique, but there are some similar themes as you look across the globe. So I mean, my approach is just, are there change agents in that country that you can support financially, spiritually, emotionally? And there's brave, as we see, there's a whole movement of women and girls, men and boys as well, saying this is not okay and we need to get behind them. But it can feel hopeless from, you know, just across the globe. So thank you and then also just to pray for them. We can send positive energy and prayer toward them.
Thank you for the question, Emily. Thank you for the comment. At this stage, Domnic, would you like to add something? Because otherwise, you know, we just want to thank each and every one of you for coming, joining us. And most of all, we want to thank Emily and Domnic for having the courage, not just for this conversation, but really have like started what I feel like can be called somewhat of a movement in terms of delving, digging, and trying to extract the roots of patriarchy and developing sort of like a community of leaders and a network of leaders that are supporting each other and trying to get us to liberation. Domnic?
Yes.
Emily, any last word of wisdom before we thank everyone and say goodbye?
Thank you so much, Maria Rose. I want to say that the journey for gender justice that actually we are involved in is not our making. We are walking God's own journey in releasing his or her people from oppression. And many times I find fulfillment in doing what I'm doing because I know it is God who called me to do this, and it is not my agenda. Actually, I'm working along God's agenda of releasing his people, because when we are calling for equality and justice, when we are calling for love, we are talking about God. So I'm pleased always, I'm encouraged always to do what I'm doing with a lot of courage, with a lot of passion, because I know God has called me to do this and I'm doing it with all of my heart. And thank you everyone for joining this, because everyone actually is involved in this, wherever you are. And we thank you so much for doing a small bit in changing and transforming our world. Thank you so much.
And I'll just add, not to lose courage in the face of these historic backlashes that are just part of progress. So to know that for every backlash, there are many faith-inspired change agents, many people, many of you are on this call, and together we can, you know, just dig deep and take that next step on our journey toward the long walk to freedom. So thank you for your solidarity and for being here, and let's be of good courage. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for being here.